Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I got some stuff to get to here. Um, I want to start with the Epstein files. There's something I was going to lead with that's more serious. Well, this is still serious, but it's funny.
We're trying to find a sex offender. Tell us where the guy lives. Like if we're
Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay, this is Representative Stansberry. I think Melanie is her first name. And she's quite upset about the Epstein files.
Hey everyone. Well,
Hey, Representative Stansberry.
I just got back to the Capitol after spending the morning at the Department of Justice reading the Epstein files, and it's a lot to process. There's a lot of truly dark, disgusting, and disturbing material in those files. And to understand the depths of depravity, I just can't even. There aren't words to describe what are in those files. But it's very clear.
So, when I worked in treatment centers with kids who were sexually reactive, most of them had been sexually abused and had abused other kids. And then I got my master's degree in counseling, and I worked in a clinician with teenage sex offenders. When you read these intake files, and you hear the history of the kids, some of the abuse that took place, whatever it is, some of it's just, so fucking bad. And it affects you forever because, people who go to war will see this more. People see it firsthand. Being in those kind of environments, like a treatment center or prison environments, are bad, and going to war is worse. People are in the police departments in cities where they see a lot of depraved things, murders, whatever. It just affects you when you see what human beings are capable of. War is the worst. You'll see everything in war. There'll be abuse, sexual abuse. There'll be, lots of death and destruction. And, then what happens to the people in a war-torn country when they're under siege and their resources are cut off and just everything there. People who live through wars, it's just, they're never the same. And, when you see what people are capable of and you experience that, and I think everyone's going to get a big dose of that as people learn more and more about the Epstein files, in the year of accountability, that America, it's almost all these politicians and many of these famous people are all involved. And then when you get into the Mossad aspect of it and all of it, it's going to be a real, I don't know. I don't know how bad it'll get. This thing has always gone away and come back, and we'll see what happens, right?
That the United States government has failed to hold perpetrators accountable for decades in this case, with the original sin of failing to prosecute Jeffrey Epstein in 2006, when the FBI and the Department of Justice had the opportunity to.
Yeah, why do you think that is, Melanie Stansberry, Representative Stansberry?
Which allowed him to continue to abuse women across his properties and across the world.
Why would you, unless he was connected in some way where they give him such a cushy deal? Not only give him a cushy deal, but make it so everybody who was involved in the crimes with him, whether it be, Ghislaine Maxwell or any of these people, these fucking creepy motherfuckers, right? All these deviant people, they were supposed to be free from prosecution. And they may still be. This is something that Ghislaine Maxwell is trying to figure out or trying to use because of that original ruling. There was a deal made that all the people associated with him could not be charged with these crimes. It was fucking horrific, right? Because we're talking about thousands and thousands of people here.
And it's so dark. It's so dark. A few things I want to say is that it's very clear that Department of Justice is covering up names of potential perpetrators and powerful people. As you're aware, Thomas Massey unmasked Sultan last night, and I can tell you that there is all kinds of disturbing correspondence between Jeffrey Epstein and various world leaders, including leaders from the Kremlin, involving conversations about women. There's a lot of redactions involving co-conspirators, many of which the FBI identified as assistants and people who worked for Jeffrey Epstein. Many of them were women. They were schedulers, assistants, but they were often the people that the survivors interacted with when they were brought in to be abused by Epstein and Maxwell and were paid by these individuals and scheduled, etc. I spent a fair amount of my time this morning looking at the files on Zorro Ranch. There's some dark stuff there. And I think it's really important that our colleagues, State House Representatives Mariana Anaya and Andrea Romero, are conducting this Truth Commission, because the FBI never did a full forensic investigation of the ranch property.
All right, so, there was also something, I didn't watch it, but Lauren Boebert did a similar thing. Let's see it first. She'll be probably, we'll see. I thought she did her own video, but there's this here from Newsmax.
Just now, she spent today poring over millions of unredacted Epstein files. And Congresswoman, it's good to see you. Let's start with what you found. What did you see?
Yes, well, this was certainly a difficult day. I was only there for a short time yesterday reviewing the unredacted documents and spent several hours today reviewing many, many more. And there's still so much more that I would like to find. But this seems that it wasn't only the trafficking of young girls, as the narrative suggests, but there are code words that suggest Jeffrey Epstein and his associates could maybe even be engaging in some sort of consumption. Is that human consumption? Are there code words? There's a lot of talk of beef jerky. There's a restaurant called The Cannibal where the owner is listed in some of these documents. Now that...
All right. Yeah, I've heard about that. I think my wife was telling me about there's some cannibal bullshit going on or whatever. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, if this all comes out and this is like, everybody knows about this, this is Newsmax, and if this is true, and if that comes out, if they're doing cannibalistic shit, right? And these people were engaging in that, and all, everybody's complicit. Like, everybody in the power structure is complicit because they passed on this and they didn't care about making it a thing until recently. I mean, the Republicans got on board late. The Democrats were never on board until fucking they saw that this was a chance to get Trump. And they were all allowing this thing to go on. I mean, this was 2006. He was busted. Could have went to jail. Didn't. And now, not real jail. And then it came back up around. He dies under Trump, right? In, prison with Trump's president. And then Trump can't move past this thing fast enough. He keeps on saying, yeah, it's time to move on. There's nothing here. It's time to move on, right? So, like, how compromised is he? And then the stuff with Mossad. Like, that's huge. There's, like, multiple things here. If it breaks the right way, it'll be, I don't think there'll ever be any accountability, but it'll be like everybody will know our government and our people that in it are completely fucked, like in a way they didn't know before, which many of us have known for a long time. We'll see. I mean, there'll be just a level of, despair where people realize how bad it is, It depends on how, this has been around for a while and people don't have, people just don't care and they're so degraded and so fucking self-obsessed. I mean, it's really hard to see how these things play out, but, this could be something that's, again, not changing anything or making anything better, but certainly giving people a big dose of reality. Before we get to this, there's a big brouhaha in the Congress today. Again, today is, did I say that already? Today's Wednesday, February 11th. This video won't be up till Friday, I guess tomorrow's the day I take off. And so just getting out ahead of everything. So there'll be a lot of stuff in this. This will be like a 2-day thing. I don't know what else I'll cover here. I'm sure there'll be some stuff to do with, I don't know if the Erika Kirk thing is hopefully, I mean, I could take an off ramp from that. But, my experience working in these treatment centers, at the same time, I worked in one of the treatment centers before I got married, and then went back and got my master's degree in counseling and worked in this other one. And I married a woman who was, her story was she was sexually and physically abused by her dad and emotionally and physically abused by her mom. And they were rich people. Like their dad was in charge of some CEO. He was like a big, important person in some, Fortune 500 company, right? And so it wasn't like she was from some impoverished situation, like some, like low life type of situation. And she was so fucked and self-abused, had attempted suicide. When we'd get in arguments, she'd try to cut herself, and she'd immediately have to go hide the knives. I mean, she was like, she'd flip out, was broken. And so I was going through that for a number of years. It affected my kids, of course. My daughter started to do the self-abusive behaviors. I had to deal with fucking that, that stuff. I mean, it's just a nightmare. And it just affects you. And just the information and knowing what happens to these people and, how bad people can behave. It just affects you. Like the damage that's done, how fucked up people could become. All these MK Ultra mind control programs involve sexual abuse. People are just completely fucked after, they go through these, they're mentally broken and shit. They're psychologically fucked up. And, and it's really hard to forget about all that stuff. And like, it changes your whole view of humanity. Like some of my attitudes just come from, and then doing what I do here and just seeing the depravity every day. It's not even necessarily to do with Epstein or sexual depravity, but just all of it, right? You just see it with the AI slop and just everything. It's humanity is very degraded, and everything is of a lower nature, and people gravitate to the lowest common denominator. And so let's get into Pam Bondi. Speaking of lowest common denominator,
may I respond very briefly to her statement?
Well, I think we can do that probably on one of our members' time.
Okay, thank you. I don't want that to get away. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind me, I have 3 documents from the DOJ production that are emblematic of the massive failure of the DOJ to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. To my right is an email that was sent by the victim's lawyers to the DOJ. It was a list of names not to redact, a list of names not to release. What did the DOJ do with this email? They released this email in the document production.
Jesus fucking Christ. I didn't know that happened. Holy shit. Trump really hates the victims because like Trump is, he identifies as an abuser. He hates the victims. Like all these women try to sue him, all these, his ex-wives. I mean, all these people. He hates all these people who are, that he's like anybody who's Trump's, any of the like vendors that he stiffed of money. He looks down on these people like they're the problem after he screwed them over or abused them or whatever it is, right? He's always on the side of the abusers, and I mean that he's a villain on the side of villains, right?
Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did. And they're getting phone calls. A lot of these people didn't want to be known. And we know you touched the document because you redacted one name and you redacted the lawyer's name, but you left the survivor's name there. The next document I want to show you, that was in the title, the victims' survivors' names, all right? The title of this one is Child Sex Trafficking, Co-Conspirators, fully redacted. And by the way, I'm going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this. Now, your deputy attorney general said, oh, well, he appears hundreds of times in the files, but he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child sex trafficking, not to prostitution, not to money laundering, child sex trafficking. And then finally, what we have here The third exhibit that I have is emblematic of the FD 302 release. These are the documents that we need that you're holding on to and over-redacting because they have the names of the men who are implicated. How do we know? Because the survivors gave testimony to the FBI, and it's in there. And what happens when you go to the portal at the DOJ to look at what's behind this redaction? Another redaction. So we can't even see them. And then there's some of these files you've pulled down from the website that we will never see because we can't search the redactions. So I have several questions for you. Who's responsible? Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? Are you able to track who it was that obscured Les Wexner's name as a co-conspirator in an FBI document? Do you have that kind of accountability?
I believe Wexner's name was listed more than 4,000 times.
Yeah, I already told you that. This is where he's listed as a co-conspirator.
Can I finish my answer? Come on, let me finish my answer.
Like, how do you come out bitchy after you fucking failed? I mean, just, like an absolute fucking piece of shit, right? Can I finish my answer?
We corrected that within 40 minutes. He was already, you're acting like everybody's trying to cover up Wexner's name.
Reclaiming my time.
I'm going to answer this question.
Reclaiming my time. Mr. Chairman.
This is how this works.
Can I have my time back? Mr. Chairman.
The gentlelady can give her answer. The time belongs to the gentleman from Kentucky.
All right, I'm reclaiming my time.
Can I give my answer?
So
Yes.
I'm going to put the language of the bill up on the screen.
Chairman,
Because I
may I
have
give
another
my
question.
answer on that?
Here's
It's a political
the question.
joke, and I need to give my answer on that.
We'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to his next
Chairman,
question.
it's my time.
Within 40
She
minutes,
called him a political joke. You're a political joke.
how this works.
Can I have my time back? Mr. Chairman.
The gentlelady can give her answer. The time belongs to the gentleman from
All right,
Kentucky.
I'm reclaiming my
Can
time.
I give my answer?
So
Yes.
I'm going to put the language of the bill up on the screen.
Chairman,
because I
may I
have
give my
another
answer
question.
on that?
Here's
It's a political
the question.
joke, and I need to give my answer.
Did you say he's a political joke or this is a political joke? I mean, you didn't do a good job. Like, there's no doubt you guys have been trying to cover this up because of Trump. You guys were all wanting to release these things before Trump was like, yeah, I'm kind of in there a lot, like fucking real lot, like crazy amounts. And, instead of being like, holy shit, we work for a fucking pedo, they've all capitulated with this motherfucker, right? Like, holy shit. I mean, it's obvious that Trump is that kind of guy, all the way back from his, whatever, the stuff I always talk about. His love letter to Jeffrey Epstein and that, quote that he had and his own behaviors outside of the Epstein files. And so, look at this fucking cunt, right?
We'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to his next
Chairman,
question.
it's my time.
Within 40
Chairman.
minutes, you asked me a question.
You can give
Within
me-
40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes
You
of me catching you red-handed.
There was one redaction out
Where
of
he's
over
listed as a
4,700,
co-conspirator.
Okay.
and we invited
what?
you
Switch
in.
to the video.
This
Show
guy
the-
has Trump
Gentlemen.
derangement syndrome. He needs to get.
This guy's got Trump derangement syndrome. Like, holy shit, right? Look at this horrible person. Look at this horrible fucking cunt, right? Like, nothing but embarrassing on the Epstein files. Trump will throw her under the bus as soon as he has to, whenever he finds it convenient or wherever he needs to do this, right? So, this is, it's horrible.
Failed politician.
Gentlemen,
You need to
I
know
want you to
these
watch the
matters.
video.
Mr. Chairman, please restore his time and remind the witness of the
himself.
rules
There
here.
is
Time.
no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals.
Is that your position as well?
My position is any victim who comes forward, of course, we would love to hear from them. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Did you ask?
Sounds like a fucking, like a very efficient way to do it.
ask Merrick Garland that the last 4 years? Did you talk about Epstein?
I'm reclaiming my time. I'm glad you're asking about Merrick Garland.
You don't get to reclaim
because
time
this
when
is
you don't-
bigger
when
than
you can't-
Watergate.
when I don't answer a question the
This
way you
goes
want.
over 4 administrations. You don't have to go back to Biden. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush. This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
And that's
now,
where the
I want to know at what point did the FBI and the DOJ decide that Lex Wessner was not a co-conspirator? Because our Epstein Files Transparency Act requires you, please put it back on the screen, please, to release the internal decision about whether to prosecute him or not, and it's not in the files, and it's not in the files for any of these other men.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
May she answer?
And he's a hypocrite because he voted against the ban that we were talking about on deep fake AI porn. Only 2 people voted against it, and you were one of them, hypocrite.
Oh my God, what a cunt.
The gentleman's time has expired. She didn't answer the question.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, could she answer the question?
Chairman, I was wondering.
The gentlelady's allowed, the Attorney General's allowed to respond the way she wants to respond to any member's questions, Republican, Democrat.
This guy's covering up this Republican piece of shit.
I have unanimous consent request.
Gentleman's recognized for a UC.
Like, this guy was like, was great when Biden was president, but is fucking completely denutted under Trump here.
This is an example. I'm submitting these 302 forms that are entirely redacted, even when you go to look at them.
Without objection.
I'm submitting a witness statement that implicates Les Wexner.
Without objection.
I'm submitting an article from the New York Times that the DOJ released nude photos and identifiable pictures of the victims. I'm submitting a letter from A.G. Bondi to Kash Patel, imploring him to quit keeping the files when you found out that they were keeping files from you, because they're still redacting files that you...
Chairman, are we going to recess for votes?
Yes, we are.
I'm submitting for unanimous consent.
All right. Well, so that fucking, I mean, this is bad. What a fucking mess. I mean, it's just, like I said before, like the depopulation thing is looking better and better as we move forward. Not that I want anything to do with it, right? Because I don't want to have to be involved in that kind of decision making, but, on a divine level, it just makes sense. Because, humanity's so fucked right now. Like, just the interactions and just all this shit. Every time I see these fucking hearings and just these are supposed to be people who are, in some ways, ahead of, supposed to be better, right? People who are leaders. They're supposed to be political leaders, and they're fucking so degraded and so shitty, so petty, so immature. Pam Bondi's like a horrible fucking cunt, just the worst. I mean, all the things that you would think a woman could be under Trump, right? Under an abusive piece of shit. Like, she is, she's the equivalent to Ghislaine Maxwell for Trump, right? And so, and he'll toss her under the bus any chance he gets. I mean, it's just retarded. Okay, so this is from MS Now. It was an article or something with the title, "The Moment That May Haunt Pam Bondi," some shit like that. And here's that moment.
Would the survivors and victims who are here please stand up one more time? Just by show of hands, how many of you or your loved ones actually have met with the Department of Justice and provided testimony and estimate and evidence? None. And of those of you who have not met, which is everyone, how many of you have reached out either individually or through a lawyer or representative to offer to provide testimony and evidence?
See, she thinks like this is this is the arrogant, smug thing. I have problems with my mouse. The arrogant, smug thing that she's been doing with Trump, and they've been doing, this smug fucking attitude, this fucking looking, and he has the Trump derangement syndrome, like that, the bullshit that she did. Today is, whatever it is, Thursday. I don't know the date. My phone's charged. I don't want to mess with it. But, she's, she's, absolutely, not somebody that's going to inspire good feelings. I mean, there's going to be the Trumpers who are just arrogant and like, yeah, Trump's the greatest, like whatever's left of that. Like there's that MAGA Trump fans, real people with real true Trump derangement syndrome in the other way, that love Trump. And then everyone else is like, you guys suck so bad and can see through this. And many of them are Trumpers, former Trumpers who are, seeing that Trump is completely compromised by the Epstein stuff. Wait, what did you say? What was the question?
And a lawyer or representative to offer to provide testimony and evidence. All of them. And of those of you, all of you who have reached out, how many of you were denied or ignored by the Department of Justice? All of them.
See, Trump is, like I said, I think yesterday, Trump has a negative attitude towards these victims. He sees these victims as like, the way that he sees all these people that complain about him, that he mistreats and abuses and bullies and the things that he's done over the years, whether it be vendors, whether it be, any person Trump is always in a position where he has more power for money, for lawyers, for whatever, for celebrity, all these things. So these were, this is how he treats these, objectified women that he, whether it's the beauty pageant girls that he that he walked into their dressing room, or any of these, Stormy Daniels, any of these people, right? Like he pursued Stormy Daniels, banged her, and then he's running for president. He goes, well, that could probably hurt me. So he sent Michael Cohen, who ended up going to jail for Trump, to go pay her off. And then when she said, hey, I did have sex with him, he called her horseface, right? So, that's kind of how Trump is. Whatever the people are, anybody who goes against him or anybody that hurts him, like these people are potentially hurting him. These victims are pushing for something that could hurt Trump and hurt Trump's business interests and hurt Trump's business associates and all these things. And so, like, they have to be against these guys because that's what Trump is. You can't represent these people. They're they're trying to get the truth out that hurts Trump, and Trump is like the greatest. So, that's how narcissistic he is. And so, the course is going to go this way.
And despite the shameful and despicable efforts by Ms. Bondi and her department to intimidate you, how many of you are still willing to speak to the Department of Justice? All of them. Well, Ms. Bondi, it looks like you have some more witnesses to talk to.
Expired.
Chrissy, why wouldn't they just sit and talk to them? So.
Right. So that was that. But her smug look on her face, the arrogance. Well, they all have Trump derangement syndrome, right? This kind of thing. And so, I don't know how this is going to play. And I don't know what, there's, like I said, the only thing that can happen is taking the system down. You can take people down. You could take Trump down. You could take Biden down. You could, whatever it is, whatever leverage there is, whatever rule of law there is, whatever there's in terms of media coverage, whatever, ends up going in that direction. But, for the most part, there's no accountability, and there hasn't been for a while in our system, for the system itself. And then, just honesty about any of these things, because there's a fear of the collapse of the system by the people that know how fragile the system is, right? That the whole thing can be taken down, because if people don't believe in it, then it collapses. That's the one thing. But we can't build it back. We'd have to build something new. You can't fix it. Like, you can't purify the system. Like, you can't, drain the swamp. Like, that's not possible. And when you drain a swamp, it's not like it gets better. People know it. I live on a swamp. Like, our pasture's a swamp. And, it's, our house is put up higher, whatever it is, but it's an area that floods. Like, every spring, our pasture floods. The whole area. Like, we have these walking paths, and there's a period of time where we just can't walk because the whole pasture is just flooded. We get these rains. Sometimes it lasts weeks. Depends on, the ground's still kind of frozen, and the rains kick in March. Right now it's a mess out there right now from the snow melting. We had a couple of warm days of snow that we had that was about 8 inches that stayed for a month. All of a sudden melts all at once, and it has nowhere to go because the ground's frozen, can't soak in the ground. It just becomes a mess. The dogs are in what we call quarantine pretty much the whole time because they pick up mud and dirt on their, the hair on their bellies and all that stuff, their paws, they're around their, their legs, and like then they just dump it wherever they come inside. They have these, whatever. And so you can't drain a swamp. The water just always comes back. You live in a floodplain. I mean, this is when we were in the flood in Chennai, India. There was a floodplain, and they had, the ashram was, they bought cheap land there with the idea that there was going to be some floods, and there were two of them. And one of them, like in terms of the ashram itself, was like under like 20 foot, 20 feet of water, something like that. We lived in a flat that was brought up, that was brought up above the floodplain, and we had 3 feet of water in our flat for about a day and a half, 2 days. And so, this is like there's just places that flood. Like there are places that are dry normally, and then once in a while, people who live around rivers know about this, and then once in a while the water just comes up and gets in your house and things like that. So, then there's swamps, and like the swamp doesn't become like free and prime real estate once you drain it. It's just going to flood again at some point, right? Like we saw that with the levees in New Orleans and these cities that have, they're actually below sea level or a couple feet above sea level. And once in a while the sea's like, hey, I want to, let me get that for a little bit, right? And so that's, and so this doesn't, and the swamp isn't a bad thing. It's just like stupid. Swamps are important. Those like areas, that's where the majority of life comes from, like marshlands near islands and things like this. These barrier islands and these places where there's just shallow water for majority of life on the planet Earth comes from those areas, right by the coastal areas. Anyways, I digress here. Okay, so I do this meditation called Sajmarg, and the fourth and legitimate master of the system, this guy Daji, who was a good practitioner, Kamesh Patel, who was a good preceptor, somebody that I had, high hopes for, or not even high hopes. I just trusted that he was going to do a good job. When he became the master, shit the bed. I mean, in ways that I can't even explain. I've talked about it on the Journey series and over the years for years. But the guy absolutely sucks, right? And he ended up hooking up with Deepak Chopra. This is Deepak Chopra wrote an introduction to his book. Now, the third master of the system, Charji, he used to be kind of a ball buster. Like he would, there was a guy who was kind of funny. I wasn't there for this, but somebody I know was there. And he was sitting at the airport, Charji, and there'd be always people like he'd be holding court. He was someone that made himself available to people. There'd be people just go to the airport and hang out with them, whatever they could spend time with them. And there's this one guy who, Charji used to rib. He was like, one of these kind of, he was a, kind of a silly person, and, whatever. And Charji was saying something like, you had a life where you used to meditate 18 hours in a day in a past life, and if you don't turn your act around, you're going to have to do another life like that. Something like that. And the guy was talking about Michael Jackson and this guy Deepak Chopra, and he was saying, you should meet Deepak Chopra. He's famous. He hangs out with Michael Jackson. And Charlie's like, I don't need to know that guy, right? This is, because he's an ass clown. Like he was like, he's Deepak Chopra. Like Charji knew that he was a joke because Charji knew like everything. He was like one of these very efficient people. He could read people, and whatever I do here is my ability to have insight into people. He was, way better at that, right? And then on a spiritual level. And so he could see through things like this. But Daji couldn't. Daji wanted to be more famous. He wanted to find ways to make his heartfulness cult thing bigger. So he thought a good way was to bring in celebrities. And he brought in Phil Jackson, the former coach of the Chicago Bulls, who's a real scumbag. But Phil was into meditation. But not, Sajmarg meditation. But he didn't care. So he thought by bringing in celebrities, and he has no personality, Daji. He's stupid. Like he's gotten stupider over the years. So he decided to pair with Deepak Chopra. And there's a guy out there I call the Daji Truther, and so a bunch of people that just hate Daji. and they're constantly sending me stuff, or he is, this one guy, and they're all, and, this is having ramifications, the Deepak Chopra thing, because this was World Peace Day, and they have a interview, which was a video. I'm sure the video it exists somewhere. But this is Daji and this is Deepak Chopra, and they have an exchange here. And these things aren't aging well, because everybody who knows the system would say that the master of the system has to be able to read people. And so it isn't the first guy that they've had problems with. There's a guy we call Diaper Baba. I'll pull up a picture of that guy. So when my family and I went to India, we returned there. I remarried. My wife went there for the first time. My kids went back as practitioners of the system. It was for Lalaji's, the second master of the systems. By that I mean the first master of the system. Birth anniversary, 75-year anniversary of the mission. And it was the inauguration of this giant, world's biggest meditation center they built. And I was really looking forward to it. And I was, really wanted my wife to get a good experience. And she was better than it is now, I'm sure. But the condition wasn't as great as I had hoped. Like there had been something that was off. And at some point, Daji brought this guy out. This guy's Guru Ramdev. He stripped down to an orange diaper and started doing belly dancing, yoga dancing. Hatha yoga is not to be done in the Sajmark system. Like you can stretch and do exercises, but not, all the Hatha yoga. It's a different kind of yoga, and it interferes with the meditation that we do, right? So, but this guy was just, he hijacked the whole thing. My brother came up to me, he's like, what the fuck was that, right? And all these people from America and Europe couldn't believe it. Indians are just used to this thing, but it wasn't, he had done something that wasn't done before by bringing this guy in. The problem with this guy, so this guy does these belly dances, and he has got this, sometimes he just goes in this, here's he is in a diaper. So my wife called him Diaper Baba. And he was just, it was like hilarious and weird. And there was a big giant screen, so it made it even worse. And there's like 70,000 people here, and we're like, what the fuck's happening, right? And this guy's had multiple issues with the government. He's tried to raise his own army. He's like kind of a weird guy. Multiple scandals. And he and Daji were going to go on a real estate deal at the ashram. Look, see, he does this thing. He did this with Daji. He gets all cute and he followed Daji around and he did this kind of stuff. It's funny. Diaper Baba. Like he's got yogic skills, but there's this company called Patanjali where he sells it's supposed to be Ayurvedic products, but a lot of it's crap. And he uses people as slave labor and didn't pay them. And he's a billionaire, but he acts like a humble guru. And he's, anyway, so Daji had to cut ties with him. Daji was also, he's involved in this thing called the membrane activation, the Brighter Mind scam, which, he's just had all these issues. And so, look at this fucking guy. And so, his judgment's completely off, and it can't, and for somebody who's a spiritual master is supposed to be able to see through people and see, that's, in fact, when you were around Master Charji, it was disconcerting. Like you could tell he just knew everything about you and things that you didn't want to know about yourself. Like things like that, like just, it would reflect back to you and it would make you feel uncomfortable because he knew he knew about you more than you knew about yourself, right? And it's not, so here he is, there they are together, there's pictures of them. And here he says, Ramdev is so simple. This is what Daji said. I'll see I think I'm locked out because I banned them or whatever. But this is him on Facebook, and Daji said, Ramdev is simply innocent and pure, and it was wonderful. But then he had to cut ties with the guy, and now they got Deepak Chopra. So, these are real life things that are happening. People make, poor judgments. And especially somebody like Daji who's supposed to be a spiritual master, and he's an absolute piece of shit, right? So those are those two clowns. So they've either blocked me or I blocked them. I definitely blocked them, but I don't know if this is. But anyways, I have a different, I have a browser where I'm not signed in on Facebook, so I can see that this here. But this is Kamlashti Patel. Ramdev is simply the innocent and pure, is wonderful meditating with him. May this not be the last visit and we meet again and again. Thank you, Ramdev, for being a part of Heartfulness celebration at Kanashantivanam. Looking forward to meeting you in Hardar during the International Day of Yoga 2020. 75 years of Saj Marg, Heartfulness. Heartfulness is just a new bullshit thing he brought up. So this is when my family was there, right? And then later on, 2022, 23, something like that, he wanted to do where they took, all the ashrams are bought by donations, right? So there's, rich people who donated more, but there's, plenty of people who've donated to buy this land, right? And they bought 1,000 acres of land out in the rural area of Hyderabad and built this amazing ashram, but it's not dodgies to give away. And it's not something to have like these private and public, having other endorsers. And Ramdev was going to come in and they were going to build some housing, some kind of bullshit housing, right, at the ashram. And then he had a scandal, and then Dodgy had to kick him to the curb. Right? But this is that kind of thing. All these people who are, Dodgy's flaw is he tried to be an elitist, right? He wanted to be in the club, and he thought he could get in there, taking something that we all created through an organization that's all volunteer work and volunteer money. Like everybody has jobs, and whatever they did for the Sajmark system was volunteer. And it was supposed to be grassroots and, above board and none of this kind of bullshit. And he's just a scumbag, and he tried to, make himself more than he was. And now he's just, this is the year of accountability. This shit's happening. Okay, so one of my viewers sent me this. This is Nick Fuentes, the obviously gay Nick Fuentes, and fucking weirdly gay. He's like weird on top of it, right? A right wing, whatever he is. But this happened.
Yo, Nick, I'm gonna bring some girls over for you.
I'm
I'm good.
good. Why the fuck would you want to bring girls over? Don't you know I'm Nick Fuentes, the gay Republican? What? Wait, not the gay. There's all don't you know a gay? One of the many gay Republicans. Anyways, so when I take something that I use the product ScreenFlow, which I had Microsoft before, and I heard the best screen grabbing product was ScreenFlow, which only works on Apple. And when I switch over to Apple, my God, my life got so much better and easier in terms of making these videos. It cut out so much time and so much bullshit I had with. Apple is so much better than Macs in terms of all this stuff. And when I do the ScreenFlow, the problem with Instagram videos is that the volume, you don't have any control of the volume. And so my volume and the volume of this thing in the background, this noise, will be completely out of balance. So then I'm going to have to cut it. I'll have to cut out the parts. I'll have to split the video and turn down the volume manually. But I didn't realize I could do it in ScreenFlow. And so when I went to ScreenFlow, I was turning down his volume because it was, and I turned it down by 80%, right? That much is the difference. And when I did that, I played it to see if it was, I have to check it to see, to match my volume, right? But it's so much easier to do it in ScreenFlow. So this is technical stuff. And when I did it, it said, I realized he said, please don't. I'm good. I didn't hear the please don't. Maybe you put it in whatever it is. But please don't, I'm good. Please, I'm begging you, no girls over here. Plus, he's really short. Nick Fuentes is a tiny little guy. And weird, whatever. Just all these people, there's no reason for them to be famous. They have almost zero to offer. Like I was saying before, people were arguing with me about Donald Trump having talent. I'm like, well, he obviously has some talents. He was, something that got him to be Donald Trump. He doesn't have zero talent like Don Lemons. I don't know what discernible talent does Don Lemons have. He doesn't have any journalists. I don't know. CNN has lots of people that have very little talent. They can get up in front of a camera and perform badly, but still they're doing. I guess that's something, But I mean, I'm not trying to just demean people because they suck. Like being truthful about it. Like Donald Trump has talent. I don't know what Nick Fuentes' talent is. Like certainly Ben Shapiro, right? Why would anybody watch Ben Shapiro? Like he's just his voice, everything that's annoying about him, right? Like people have some abilities, things that make them stand out. But like Nick Fuentes, like not a lot there that's worth watching. Like just the way he presents himself, the way he yells, his thoughts. But there's so many demented insults out there. Involuntarily celibate, right? So there's all these mad guys out there, a little bit gay, And so this is where America and the world's at with this kind of shit, right? Okay, someone sent me this clip, and I was concerned that might be deep faked, but what I didn't know, this was when Biden was still president. So this was, look at this fucking ghoul right here. So there's two parts to this. I'll show you the first part, but the second part is what was sent to me. It's about the world reserve currency. Woo! Woo! We're having some kind of town hall there.
President Xi said he's preparing for war. They have been ramping up their military now for over a decade, and now they increased their defense budget another 7.6%. And President Xi said he's preparing for war. I assume it's against us. Is that a wrong assumption?
Well, it's not against Belgium or Luxembourg.
Boom. Marco. Little fucking Marco.
Look, I think the bottom line is we're in a conflict. And I think we have to start talking about it that way. A lot of time, most of the people who are up here now don't remember. I was very young, obviously, at the end of the Cold War, but it's been about 30 years since there was another superpower on the earth that was in conflict with the United States. And we are back in that place. And we need to stop pretending like that's not the case. Now, I hope it's never an armed conflict, but it's a conflict at every level you can imagine. And I think, look, we have a couple problems. Number one, the White House, the Biden administration is filled with a bunch of traditional, conventional.
Okay, so then, that all doesn't play out because, of course, but then this part here,
In our hemisphere, largest country in the Western Hemisphere south of us, cut a trade deal with China. They're going to, from now on, these things that just today, Brazil, in our hemisphere, largest country in the Western Hemisphere south of us, cut a trade deal with China. They're going to, from now on, do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. They're creating a secondary economy in the world, totally independent of the United States. We won't have to talk about sanctions in 5 years because there'll be so many countries transacting in
It's talking about BRICS, right?
Currencies other than the dollar, that we won't have the ability to sanction them. As we are sitting here, focused on some of these nuttiness that's going on, people that are basically dedicating their lives in this country to ensuring that it is legal to mutilate children, to do drag shows in schools. They dedicate their lives to this.
The Epstein files that you're not releasing. So let's let him finish here.
And we have another superpower that basically wants to become the world's dominant power at our expense. And these people don't want to focus on it. We had some person on The View yesterday say that our criminal justice system is no.
All right, just great for watching The View. I'm glad you watched The View, little Marco. But what he said about the currency, right? And you have these currencies coming in, and I think maybe it's
better than what China is doing with its genocide of Uyghur Muslims. So we better wake up, or we're going to live in a very different world than the one we've been used to, and it's going to happen very fast.
We have military installations now that have.
All right. So let's couple that. Let me play my meme of Elon Musk saying that its country's going to be bankrupt if they don't do a good job, and let me play that meme here.
The overall goal here with the Doge team is to help address the enormous deficit. We simply cannot sustain as a country $2 trillion deficits. The interest rates, just the interest on the national debt, now exceeds the Defense Department spending. We spend a lot on the Defense Department, but we're spending over $1 trillion on interest. If this continues, the country will become de facto bankrupt. It's not an optional thing, it is an essential thing. That's the reason I'm here. And taking a lot of flack, and getting a lot of death threats, by the way. I mean, I'd like to stack them up, But if we don't do this, America will go bankrupt. That's why it has to be done. And I'm confident at this point, knock on wood, knock on my wooden head, There's a lot of wood up there, that we can actually find $1 trillion in savings. That would be roughly 15% of the $7 trillion budget.
Okay, so there's also, let me show you this meme as well.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Okay, so both of those things happened in 1 week, right? And you see what Marco Rubio was saying. And, you know, Biden was campaigning on if Trump takes over, it's going to be the end of the world. I mean, we're talking end of the world shit, where people are saying if Biden gets elected, it'll be end of the world. If Trump gets elected, it'll be end of the world. You know, there's one thing that's true here is that the end of the world that we now know it is in play, and they all know it, right? Because Elon Musk was saying here stuff that we already knew. I knew for a number of years. But he had access to data and information, and that our budget is $7 trillion plus $1 trillion in interest. And our revenue, which he doesn't say, is $5 trillion, our tax revenue. And so with a budget like that, and if we had a tax revenue of $6 trillion, then our budget would be $10 trillion, right? No matter what it is, it's always going to be more. We're always going to spend more than we have, right? But the interest alone, we can't even pay down. We can't make any, you know, just pay off the interest. Like you get into a situation where every month you're paying just the interest on your credit card debt, right? You're not getting anything on the principal. And it's up to whatever it is now, probably close to 40 trillion, 39 trillion, whatever. It'll be 40 trillion soon. Then it'll be, 50 trillion. Then at some point they'll be like, hey, let's not even pretend anymore. And we're kind of past that point. But he said, unless Doge did a really good job, at best, Doge could shave off $1 trillion. $1 trillion, right? Off the when the whatever bullshit it was. And he didn't save anything. Doge was a complete and utter failure. But what he did admit to is that we're bankrupt, which we have been forever. We're insolvent. We're never going to pay off not just the national debt, but our collective debt, our credit card debt. America is $100 trillion in debt, and then the derivatives, another $700 trillion of debt being used as money. Like it's just upside down. It's what happens with a usury-based, debt-based economy. And Marco Rubio saying they're going to use a different currency, this whole BRICS thing, all that shit that's happened. And so, it's just a matter of when it's acknowledged. Like it's being talked about and flirted with, but when it's acknowledged, yeah, guess what? We're bankrupt. And, that'll happen whenever it happens. But the truth is that we're fucked. Like if you were an individual person and you were in this bad financial shape, even Trump couldn't bankruptcy his way out of this fucking thing if this was his finances. I mean, America's finances are, if you were an individual person, you'd have no chance of ever righting the ship, right? It's like there's that woman, Elizabeth, whatever her name is. They made a mini series about her. She made this she did this scam where she was trying to collect people's blood and do like on-site blood fucking examinations, right? And she had this $1 billion company she didn't have the science to back it, and she defrauded all these people, and she could never be a CEO again, and she could never own any money. Like everything that she ever earns from this point on needs to go to the people she ripped off. So she's going to be basically broke for the rest of her life. She's going to have nothing. Like anything she has immediately goes to the people she owes, right? Like that kind of, that's what America would be, even worse than that. And so it's, like it's stick a fork in it time. As soon as it's acknowledged, it's over. And it's being acknowledged, but not officially yet. But when it's officially acknowledged, yeah, we're insolvent. And then the whole world economy collapses, that'll be that day, right? The day that happens. Okay, so let's not lose sight of where we're at, right? So this is a video that was recommended to me. I haven't watched it yet, but I know it's going to be, spicy. Spicy. This is Jerry Nadler. Jerry, look at this fucking goal from New York. Jerry Nadler. Like, Jen Psaki sucks, and she was the press secretary covering up for Biden's senility, his Parkinson's, right? And she, has gotten somewhat better at her presentation, but her show still sucks, right? And mainstream media sucks. MSNBC and MS Now and CNN and all the rest. And certainly Fox, but, in a different way. Justice Sucky, just, a different way of going about sucking. But in terms of the left media, in terms of the Democratic politicians, they don't have to suck anymore. And these guys don't give a shit about Epstein, and they could have, they had 4 years under Biden to do this, and they didn't. Had they done this, Trump wouldn't be president. They could have released all the files and buried Trump under a mountain of Epstein, given all the right-wing dose what they wanted, say, all right, we'll give it to you, and bury Trump. But they didn't, because they want to cover up for their own bullshit. They're all part of it. They're all complicit. But now, Trump is the big fish, like I've said. And he's going to own this thing. He's going to wear it. Like, that's how bad this fucking thing is, right? Because it's all-encompassing. Epstein was everywhere, and it was his relationship with Israel and all that stuff. All that shit's gone south, right? You've lost the youth on Israel. You've lost the youth on all these things. And America just will never, be the same as it was in terms of this point of view. And it can't build back up from this. Like, it can't recover from all this stuff. I'm not talking just about Epstein. I'm talking about, the entitlement and all the stuff that's happened. We've reached a stage where, it's like there's no chance of success, right? That's these kids growing up knowing that they live in impending doom, they can feel it, right? And so that's, this is an indication of that. This is like one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, when the shitty liberal media and the shitty Democratic politicians are able to hold Trump and his cronies' feet to the fire on Epstein. Like, that's how much things have reversed themselves.
How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even...
Like, she's just got this smug sorority girl thing going on.
...investigating?
This administration released over 3 million pages of documents, over 3 million, and Donald Trump signed that law to release all...
So you're going to pretend you guys wanted to do that? Like, anybody fucking, like, that's the worst way to go about it. Like, all the people who are smart and are have some ability for critical thinking skills, who are possibly more right than left, who are really passionate about this, know that you guys blocked it, and Donald Trump didn't want any part of this. He looks guilty as fuck, because he is guilty as fuck, right?
Of those documents, he is the most transparent president in the nation's history. And none of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over, the Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing.
So, like, seems like they're loving this stuff. I don't know if there's anything more here. I thought there's a compliment. I guess there's something here.
The DOJ is not collaborating.
Look at this. Look at Zoe Lofgren of California. Holy shit. Like, this is your fucking leadership. Go, Zoe. Take it to her, Zoe. Jesus Christ. Are you going to make it, Zoe? This looks like some kind of fucking creature you'd see in some post-apocalyptic fucking movie.
With state and local law enforcement.
She replaced that other woman, Dianne Feinstein, Ghoulgasm.
On these homicides. So I really think that is a disgraceful approach to the homicides of American citizens, and really...
She didn't really replace her. She's a congresswoman and she's not a senator. But I mean, Jesus Christ, this is what they're shitting out of California.
Does nothing to bring credit to your department. And Mr. Chairman, I would yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
May I answer?
Attorney General can respond.
I find it interesting that she keeps going after President Trump, the greatest president in American history.
Fuck. She lost her shit here. There's another one.
Were there any underage girls at that party or at any party that Trump attended with Jeffrey Epstein?
This is so ridiculous. And that they are trying to deflect from all the great things Donald Trump has done.
I guess it's pretty bad here. This is the girls thing where you got him. Well, she got the woman to stand up too here, apparently.
Refused. To the survivors in the room,
If you are willing, please stand.
You guys are putting through these women through a lot of standing. I mean, they can't.
And if you are
They
willing.
can't be sitting and standing all fucking day. You guys, you fucking Democrats. I
Willing.
mean, they're barely survivors. Like, you don't can't fucking.
Please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand. Will you turn to the survivors? This is not about anybody that came before you. It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize for what your Department of Justice has done.
Members get to ask the questions. The witness gets to answer in the way they want to answer. The Attorney General can
That's
respond.
not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she doesn't
It is
like the
my
answer.
time.
So,
Mr. Chairman,
why
I have asked
didn't
a
she ask
question.
Merrick Garland this?
I am
twice
reclaiming
when he
my
sat in
time,
my
and
chair?
when I
will
reclaim my
continue to
time,
answer.
it is
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady's
I'm
reclaimed her
not going
time.
to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
The time belongs.
I think again, the gutter for the actors. So going with those victims is getting in the gutter. Like that's what she'd say. I'm not going to deal with these gutter living fucking people over here. These people are for the gutter. Whatever they got, they were lucky. They were lucky to partake with Jeffrey Epstein and Trump and those elites. These gutter rats over here. Fuck.
The time belongs to the gentlelady. The gentlelady has 17 seconds.
Thank you. You're not going to answer this question, so let me just
Chairman,
say
I'll
this.
direct it to
What a
you.
massive
No, I'm
cover-up.
answering a
Mr.
question.
Chairman, will you restore her time? The witness
I'm
is
not going to get in
interrupting.
the gutter with this woman.
Stop the
She's
time
doing
and
theatrics.
let me.
Boom. All right. So.
I mean.
And so there's one more piece here. I think one more.
Thing, I yield back.
I was curious.
I don't know what she said here. Fucking this. Fucking.
Do the right thing, Attorney General. Meet with the survivors. They have been asking for a year. Meet with the survivors. Do the right thing. I yield back.
I was curious if you, Congresswoman, asked Bill Clinton that. Didn't see one tweet, not one. I didn't see one.
Okay, so the worst thing you can do is make it about how they didn't get served before. Because one of these guys, somebody said, I guess it was Massey. Yeah, there's been failure on Epstein for like 4 different presidents or 5 presidents, right? Not even failure with Bill Clinton because he was. Remember, Epstein had a dress of Bill Clinton. Like this is, Massey didn't give a shit about it. He was like, yeah, they all failed. Like, so what? Like, you're the guys who are in charge of this now, and Trump has been blocking this, right? Like, and she's accusing them of deflecting, right? Because, Trump is president. Like fucking.
Tweet when Joe Biden was in office about Bill Clinton. Didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein, not once when he was.
Weak sauce.
And also,
Weak sauce. Did you just yell weak sauce? Weak sauce. Weak sauce.
I want the record to reflect that, with this anti-Semitic culture right now, she voted against a resolution.
Anti-Semitic culture. Wow, she brought fucking Israel. You think that's wise? Did anybody ask her about them being in Mossad, right? Like, that would be a way to go. There's Jeffrey Epstein's link to Mossad. But again.
Condemning.
Oh,
is
Jewish.
I just want to be clear.
Do you want to go there, Attorney General? Or do you want to go there? Are you serious? Talking about anti-Semitism to a woman who lost her grandfather in the Holocaust?
She lost her grandfather in the Holocaust. There seems to be a theme amongst these questioners. And there's one more here.
Paired with no good answers or a combination, her go-to move during the hearing was to repeatedly behave like some sort of over-caffeinated high school mean girl.
This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to get. You're a failed politician.
Not a complicated question.
Well, I guess it is for you because you have a law degree and those are privileged. Do you even know who Chase Mulligan is? You're so obsessed with. You don't, do you?
I'm going to teach you the rules again.
Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump? Nothing about helping crime in her district. She's not even worth getting into the details. Excuse me, I'm going to answer the question.
She's like one of those bitchy sorority girls in like Legally Blonde or fucking Revenge of the Nerds or one of these comedies, right? Fucking National Lampoon's Animal Health, like something like that, right? One of these bitchy security girls that's like the villain in some lowbrow comedy, right? American Pie or something like one of these fucking, lowbrow movies, comedy movies where there's a bitchy sorority girl, right?
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No, and I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
Lawyer, not even a
Washed up loser lawyer. You don't tell me anything. Now this can only be playing for. She's performing for Trump, and she's performing to the people who will always be Trumpers, right? Like the dumb fucks that'll never leave Trump. But mostly for Trump. This is mostly a performance for him, right? Because this is like a career-ending situation. Like the Republicans want to distance themselves as far away from her as possible, and we'll see what happens in 2 years, and then in 4 years, whatever, 3 years, whatever, a year and a half, and a year from now, and then 2 years from that, 3 years, when there's all Democrats running the government, and they're going after fucking Trump, and they're going after everybody, all of us, because you can't have freedom of speech because you're going to have a Trump. It's going to fuck everybody, and so, but these people like her will be indicted and be running for their lives.
You don't get a reclaim time when you don't. When I don't answer a question the way you want. Only 2 people voted against it, and you were one of them, hypocrite.
But we're going to move back to you.
I bet we are.
Yes, of course, because you're here to testify.
The whole thing is given a grown-up.
Yeah, so there's that. This is great. This is exactly what Trump 2.0 was. This is exactly what Trump 2.0 promised us, right? Okay, Nancy Mace gaggles. She's gaggling. Nancy Mace is gaggling with CNN's Manu Raju on Capitol steps following the Bondi hearing.
How are you doing? On the Epstein files, the Justice Department is saying that there would be no other prosecutions, as Todd Bland said. Are you okay with that?
No, not at all. And that is, the system of, I personally lost all faith in our justice system. It is a system of
Whoa, you mean the Trump justice system? Republicans, South Carolina Republican Nancy Mace, have you lost faith in Pam Bondi?
justice. There is evidence, there are co-conspirators. You can't have thousands of victims and have no other accomplices except for one. And I'm on my way to the DOJ again for the second time this week. It is insulting that out of 535 members of Congress, there are 4 computers and 4 chairs in a room the size of a closet for us to go look up information, if the document even exists. Some of the documents you can't even find within the system. The internal memos talking about co-conspirators are unavailable to you. Some of the co-conspirator documents that are redacted online, if you can find them in the DOJ system, are redacted still. And the excuse is, well, this is how we received the data. There's no effort, none at all, to prosecute predators in the Epstein cases. And it's devastating, but it is important that we get that list out of potential
co-conspirators. Okay, so, it means Trump's compromised. Like, just fucking say it. Just fucking say it, Nancy. Just say it.
And I'm going to be putting out my own list of people that I want interviewed by the House Oversight Committee. I'm not saying they did anything wrong or illegal, but what I am saying, I think they have information and answers.
All right, she's guilty. Trump is guilty. Like, let's just leave it at that. Like, can we just say that? Just say he's guilty. You don't have to say that it's factual. Just say, I think he's guilty, because that's what everyone should think, because he's fucking guilty. Right? Trump is guilty, and this is all about him, like everything else. Okay, so this thing with Candace and Erika's fading fast. Like,
all right, you guys, I actually think it's appropriate to bring Kid Rock back, bring him on a stage right now, because I loved his...
It's never appropriate to bring Kid Rock back. Just like it's never appropriate to bring the Backstreet Boys back, right? They should just be forgotten, and it's an embarrassment to our culture.
Song with Sheryl Crow was a big hit. I put your picture away. That one, very relevant today. because what's trending all over the internet right now is Picturegate. Who put that picture away? That's what they want to know. It refers to a picture of Erika and Charlie on their wedding day, which Charlie had in his home office, that suddenly went missing after his death. And I
No way. Somebody took it.
tell you why the internet is on fire about that. Also, they did
Really? Is that what you're reduced to? A fucking wedding photo?
just go ahead and fire Carrie Prejean for standing up for Catholics down in Texas, Catholics and sensible people, because she refuses to worship Israel, which Catholics cannot do, and moral people should not.
Okay, so you stop with the Catholicism. You know, I was born Catholic, and I had a good experience with my Catholicism in terms of I had no bad experiences, but it wasn't enough. And, of course, there's lots of people who have had bad experiences. Like, where are you going? Like, just, you know, there's enough evidence on the Catholic Church. There's enough evidence on Donald Trump. There's enough, you know, where you have a warning sign. Like, you know, like something. I mean, you know, people have different sides. It's not like people are 100% evil. And so they have their positive sides, their good sides, the part that you see. And, you know, with people in your life, you might see their good side first, or you might see their bad side first. And, you know, it's not either or. It's like a complex, people are complex with multi-layers and multiple different samskaric patterns and things from the past, and, you know, multi-talented and also multi-failures, you know, all these things. People are full of complex things, right? And given the right circumstances and situations, anything can be pulled out of people. Like, you really wouldn't know somebody until they've gone through a war. And I mean, not just like a war, but certainly a war is the worst. You know, it pulls out, it's like hell. Like, say, war is hell if there's a reason. Like, if you go through hell and these things. And then there's, like, other, you know, forms of war. But you don't understand people until they go through things. And, you know, whatever, the dark things and the good things, right? Some people are great when they're losers, but when they become successful, they turn into complete assholes, right? You know, they're incompetent, fucking whatever they are, right? They're a bro, you know, one of these slacker bros, and then they become the boss, and like all their friends hate them, you know, like it's this thing. People become successful. Success can ruin people. And so you have things where, you know, you see something in somebody, because people are usually trying to hide their dark side. Organizations, people. And when it leaks out, like with the Catholic Church, I mean, you know, like there's enough evidence about the Catholic Church, and it's not just the pedophile stuff, it's, you know, centuries of thousands of years. I mean, Catholic Church is the original Christianity. Christians, a lot of them don't even understand this. You were all once Catholics, and then you became Christian when, I guess it was Henry VIII or one of those kings decided to make his own church because he wanted to get divorced, right? Something like that. And then there's all these different sects that came out of it, different forms of Protestantism, different kinds of Catholics, right? All these, the Jesuits, all these different little, you know, whatever it might be. And when your group does something negative, you know, this is what I'm dealing with this heartfulness thing. Like, you lose this trust. You know, the Sizemore system was impeccable. It was amazing, this system itself. But people are flawed. And so when Jesus came down, any saint, any divine being, any person that rises up to high levels, they come out and they're doing a good job, and, you know, they're doing what they're supposed to do. And then people get involved and the whole thing gets fucked, right? And so that's what we have. So the Catholic Church is a known entity, just like Trump is a known entity, and all these other institutions are known entity, just like Candace is a known entity. You know, she's a attention grabber and a deceiver. Erika Kirk, all these people, TPUSK, it's like what Charlie Kirk was. He was a shekel taker, right? Like, you know, you don't have to go looking for the stuff, but when you don't have to be somebody who's like all negative and looking for dirt and looking for slime. You know, that's what a lot of people in the truth community become. Oh, I know you're going to lie to me, so I'm going to, like, you can't be like that. Like, you just got to go about your life. But when you're shown something or you see it, you can't deny it. And this is like, so there's nothing more to see here. We all saw what we saw with Erika Kirk. What more do you need? We all saw what we saw with Charlie Kirk, and we all saw what we saw with this thing with Israel. We all saw what we saw with Biden and Trump. We all saw what we saw with Candace Owens, and it's all there for everyone to see. Erika Kirk, and we don't need, you don't like to beat a dead horse. You need enough information to know whether you can trust somebody or some organization, and usually the answer is no. You're given enough information without even looking for it. It's just right there in front of you, right? And so, like when you need some kind of smoking gun, or you just need something concrete or whatever it is, or you need somebody to go to jail or whatever it is, like you need legitimacy or something, well, then you're fucked, right? And so this is where she's at with this thing.
Home studio set. So he has his studio at home and a studio at the office. And at his home studio set, he has a wedding picture. And I'm going to explain to you why this wedding picture suddenly matters. So Charlie...
It doesn't matter. It fucking just doesn't. It doesn't matter. Charlie Kirk was a shackled up piece of shit. His organization's a failed organization that was there to support Israel and Donald Trump, who's turned out to be somebody who's, the biggest blocker of the Epstein files from coming out, because he's guilty of that, because he fucking admitted to it when he said Jeffrey Epstein was a terrific guy and you like young girls. We don't need any of that. You don't need any of this stuff. It's already there. We don't need a wedding fit? Well, there's something, right?
His last live appearance before he was assassinated was, from his home studio at least, was on September 8th. This is the date that I believe Erika was actually at Fort Huachuca. Well, despite having just...
What? You believe she was? She wasn't. Like, I mean, she could have been, but, like, you have zero evidence of that. You have, like, one fucking guy. It was one guy, only one guy. There's no other evidence that she's there. Nobody else has come forward, and even if they did, they'd be pieces of shit. There's no video evidence. There's no evidence that she was at Fort Huachuca. And if she was, that doesn't mean anything. And I believe that this guy was official story is bullshit, which you guys all know. But you just made this up because you've taken this guy Mitch Snow, who has no credibility. If you're saying that this Erika Kirk's a liar, well, Mitch Snow is a liar, right? Why do you believe the guy proven liar that lied with the hammer incident? Why don't you bring Mitch Snow back on, right? Like you're hiding away from him, but you still want to run with the Fort Huachuca bullshit. I believe. You believe. Like, who cares what you believe? Like, there's no facts behind this, right? That she was at Fort Huachuca. Like, even if she was, you have nothing. Like, you have no evidence but some fucking broken down lying piece of shit, right?
Just arrived on a flight back from Tokyo. Shortly before midnight on the 7th, Charlie Kirk was awake, and he did 1 hour of the Charlie Kirk Show on the 8th from his studio, where he recapped what he loved about Korea and Tokyo. And in the background, you can see that Charlie has a wedding photo. Okay, this is the morning of September 8th, just to put that in your...
Everything. He has papers everywhere. This says, it's the priorities. It says family, children, legacy, kids number one, versus careerism, consumerism, and loneliness. It's interesting. I don't know. I could spend hours in this at this desk, but my point is with little things like that is that he would sit here on Sundays.
Remember that thing where she realized she was at number one?
Writing, using his journal, like going through all these drawers, and he was preparing for the week ahead.
You hear her say that she had not been in there in a long time. So the internet was correct to spot that oddity. If this really is your first time in his office, the first time looking down at his desk, who moved the frame behind his...
Okay, so Jesus Christ. Like, that's what you've been reduced to? There's a picture, wedding picture's gone? That's so significant, right? I mean, wedding picture's a wedding picture, but Jesus fucking Christ. Like, you got nothing then, right? So, the whole thing with Mitch Snow happened. Candace, so this is what we're done with this thing here. And, I'm going to do very little of this, just if it's something worth mocking. Like, this is what she's reduced to. Like, she knows she's talking about things about Erika Kirk that we all knew. That she's fucking weird and she's not, like, legitimate. And she's a fucking faker and a poser. And she can't grieve worth shit. And, she's weird. Nobody likes her. And she's hiding away right now. Like, she's not on social media. She's clearly hiding away. I don't know what's going on internally, if they're trying to oust her, get rid of her. I mean, they really can't do that. I don't know how they could do that unless she says her mom is sick and her kids, and she just can't handle the hate that's coming from everyone. It means that she's a fucking quitter. I mean, I don't know how they do that in any real legitimate way, and they don't have anybody else to put out there. The organization's a fraud, and it's cratering, right? I mean, they're talking about this big Super Bowl successful thing. I can't imagine they got that many views. But if they did, then that shows you how fucked America is, right? But like, Candace Owens was praying to God to give her something legitimate about Charlie Kirk, and Mitch Snow showed up. And that's when, you realize her prayers aren't being answered. And so she admitted she doesn't have anything substantial. She has these weird things that she finds with fucking Egyptian planes or, whatever it might be, French Foreign Legion, all these things she's thrown up against the wall to keep people engaged. Like this is an episode of fucking Lost in a season where they're scrambling for fucking mysteries. But, who gives a shit? The fucking photo disappeared, right? From its office. Who the fuck knows what happened, right? Who knows if she took it or, somebody else, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like that means she was at Fort Huachuca? Like, like it's just getting silly. She does 27 minutes on this thing, right? It started off with Laura Loomer complaining that, that Erika Kirk needs to sue Candace Owens, and then she gets into this whole thing. I believe she was in Fort Huachuca. You do? You really do? Because of Mitch Snow, do you? Or you just need something to fucking say to your fucking audience because you're running out of fucking shit, right? Because you don't need any of it. You don't need anything on the Catholic Church. You don't need anything on Trump. You got enough information to make your decisions. There's never going to be this kind of, justice. There's no justice system here, but there's divine accountability. And part of that divine accountability is when everybody knows, it's just like, look at how many people were canceled with far less than you have on Erika Kirk and Charlie Kirk and fucking Donald Trump and these other people. I mean, you're getting canceled by your own people. Your own people don't know how to be your fans anymore. Your own people don't want to support you anymore. Your Trumpers leave you. That's what should happen to all these people, including Candace Owens. They're worthless. They've all displayed that they're not worth listening to. But people are still listening to them because they're just dead inside, right? They can't think for themselves. They're just NPCs walking around bumping into shit. So somebody wrote a song and then AI'd it. Grifter. This is Erika J. Kirk.
I'm a grifter, and made out of skin. Is that go to a million?
All right. So this shit's just out there now. She's a grifter. And so that's Erika J. Kirk's. Okay. So this is Stop, That's It. Erika Kirk hard-hitting rap and dark techno. So now I'm getting all these recommended. I clicked on one, and you know how that goes, right? This is a much better one.
Stop, that's it, that's all I gotta say. Laugh in my lipstick, blood on the resume. Daddy's home on a Friday night. Shabbat shalom, we gon' dance till it's light.
And then the rap is pretty good. So Shabbat shalom, Daddy's home, throws his phone in the drawer, and Shabbat shalom on a Friday night. So they got a bunch of shit in here.
The alibi quick, now I'm tipsy in the vid, doing shots to his pics. Shabbat, shalom to the man in the ground. Candles for the soul, confetti for the crown. Ain't no grifters here, just the checks I cash.
There's no grifters here.
Yes, I can. He played games, I played aim, now I'm free at last.
And then the chorus, and then there's something else here.
30 or 6.
Oh, let's go back to that one. I forgive him, that young man, You
better not miss. With my 30 or 6.
All right, it's a pretty good one. It's actually a listenable to song, and the lyrics are great. So this is Erika Kirk's future right here. I wonder how many songs there are. I know there's 2 at least, and I think if there's 2, there's got to be thousands. So I got some comments I forgot to get to yesterday, and I don't even remember them, but I hopefully remember what I was going to say, or I'll just say do stuff. I don't know. But all of us who make content, like truther-based content or information-based content, we all have to make choices, right? We all have to go through a process. And so, I made shitty truther content in the beginning, and some of my videos popped because it was applicable or accessible to dumb fucks. Because I was a dumb fuck myself in terms of making truther content. And I was just going along with some of the conventional narratives and saying what other people were saying and some of these things. You know, I hadn't established my own principles and my own way about going about disseminating this information. And there were lots of narratives that were out there in the truth community, and it was nowhere as bad as it is now. Like, there was not as much stupid stuff. You know, Alex Jones was there, but he wasn't nearly as bad as he is now. And there wasn't so much disinformation out there then. And, you know, there were things out in the truth community that I thought other people had vetted. So we were all, you know, that somebody had been responsible before putting these ideas out there, right? You know, things that have become pillars of the truth community. And when I started looking into them, I found that they were, well, you know, I started to see more and more bullshit information being shared by people. And so I started to fact check it, right? And I also, like, you know, when I made my video that 95% chance that Michelle Obama is a dude, is a man, and Jennifer Aniston and Serena Williams were involved in that. And, you know, when I look back at that video, I mean, even, you know, shortly after, I realized that I was picking photos that were more manly, right? Like, I wasn't ignoring the ones that made them look more like women. Like, some photos look more like men and some they look more like women, right? And I realized that wasn't, like, fair. That wasn't, you know, that was dishonest, right? And so I started to check myself and start thinking about the way I disseminate information. And then I saw that there was all these things that when I looked into them, they weren't really true, or there was no, at least, factual basis for them. They might be partially true or a little bit true. One of those things is thermite. This idea that thermite was used in the you know, these buildings at 9/11. And, you know, when I looked into it, the controlled demolitions of really big buildings, thermite was never used because you know, it's not as effective as these explosives. You know, these companies that destroyed the tallest buildings. There's one company that's responsible for, like, the Superdome in Seattle and the tallest building before 9/11. Like, before 9/11, this building was about a third as big as Building 7, or maybe 2/3 as big as Building 7, right? And so, you know, I put this into my whole thing, you know, my videos about 9/11, this stuff. But all these people are talking about thermite, and there was no, thermite just never was used. And when I said all these things, people lost their shit because they've come to believe these things, but no one ever fact-checked them. Thermite was only used in situations where it was a building without any cement on it, without any, you know, structures that were like, they started to build a building and then they lost funding, so they took down the girders. And they could take down the girders one at a time and use thermite to melt through the girders. But they didn't have to collapse a building all at once because these explosives are, you know, set. I mean, they have a way of going about it, right? And so, you know, so there are things like that that I discovered, right? And every person has to, you know, go through these ethical dilemmas because, like, let's put it this way. When the QBs came in, they just started throwing shit up against the wall and making crazy shit up, the QAnon stuff. And there was lots of people that were feasting on this. You know, a lot of people who are, you know, they were QB lurkers, so they don't have any paper trail or any internet cyber trail. But, you know, they were QBs for a little bit. Like, Alex Jones started to be a QB, and then he realized, oh, this is going to backfire. Right? These people. And, of course, he was the original QB. But each person has to deal with these, you know, ethical dilemmas where I started making reasonable, practical videos, or I was making reasonable, practical videos for years by the time QAnon came around. And these people would come in and they would comment going, oh, you don't get it. There's so much more here than that. Look at this, and look at this video, and this was the flat earth stuff. And I'm like, no, you guys are just, you know, it would be better for me if I embraced this stuff because there was a wider audience and a lot of desperate, fucked up people that are looking for someone to legitimize their craziness, right? That's what a lot of the truth community is. A lot of dumbass, dumb fuck, crazy fuck people who are looking for someone to legitimize their craziness, somebody with, you know, the ability to articulate it in a way that makes sense for them, right? And when you don't do that, they lose their shit because they, you know, they don't want to admit that they're just not good thinkers, right? They're not good at thoughts. They're not good at understanding shit. They're not good at reality. But in terms of my practical videos, they weren't getting nearly as many views as all the QB shit, right? All the flat earth shit, all this stuff, which there was so much energy in there. Because, practical videos and videos that aren't playing on your emotions like Alex Jones has taught everyone to do. Chicken Little, the sky is falling bullshit. Panicking people, talking about things in a reasonable way, right? And so another one of these ethical dilemmas that you have, where you can go the shitty route and get more views and get more popularity, or you can go the more reasonable route, or go the route of truth, right? Go, talk about things truthfully. Like I said, back then when I discovered that I was, just parroting a lot of the stuff that was in the 9/11 community, I needed to make it very clear to my audience and myself what's fact and what's opinion, what's speculation, right? And there's very little facts in the truth community because we don't have access to them, and we can't call something a fact, which the mainstream system can do. They can call something a fact. We can't. And so we're never going to really have facts. So that's just forget about facts because we're not going to have them. Like we're going to have speculation and opinion and theory that's always going to be unproven because we can't legitimize anything because we're not a part of the legitimate system. We can have facts within our own level of truth community stuff or whatever you want to call it. Facts are overrated because material reality itself is an illusion. So there is no facts because this is an illusion. The sky isn't really blue. It's, the sun's rays, the prismatic diffraction or whatever it's called, refractor or whatever it is. When you put a light through a prism and it breaks up into the 6 or 8 colors that are there, there are things that absorb all the colors but one. Like trees' leaves are green, and they absorb everything but green and reject green, and so it looks green. It reflects green light back, right? Which is kind of brilliant and interesting, but also illusionary. So there isn't any of these things, right? And so, like in terms of talking about this, it's always should be done lightly. That's why I do comedy thing here. It's a comedy show because I don't, nobody fucking knows. I mean, we're dealing with different layers of truth. The spiritual one being, and there's layers of spiritual truth as well, right? Not religious truth, but spiritual truth, the actual divine truth. And there's reason why bad shit is happening for divine reasons. And so people will never get to that point. Like, things seem unfair because you can't see the past. You can't see your past lives. You can't see the past behaviors of human beings over centuries, over thousands of years. And we are here because there's a reason. You can't see the spiritual reasons for us being here because of the lack of spiritual awareness, the lack of spiritual practice. These things called samskaras, right? And so in all that, you have these ethical dilemmas. And Candace Owens was up against it, right? So she said that she was, going down these rabbit holes of fucking, the Egyptian plains. And, this is, about, I don't know, a couple months ago, I don't know now, 2 months ago, a month and a half. And she was praying that God show her something legitimate, something where she could tie all this stuff together, something that would be factual. And her answer was bitch Snow, right? It was a complete joke, right? The guy was a fraud and, like all the things that we know about him now, right? And even if he wasn't, it's just hearsay. It's just his thinking that he saw Erika Kirk and that other fucking clown at Fort Huachuca, and then all this stuff that you derive from that. Oh, there must have been some meeting there. There was some meeting, and they were planning, obviously, Charlie Kirk's assassination. It's huge leaps without facts, right? And so as a person that's presenting information to your audience, you have a choice to make. She had a choice to make. And the ethical, the moral thing to do was not even bring this guy in because it was obviously he was full of shit. He was just some crazy, professional person that confesses, like cops that get these people that confess to everything, right? Like there's some big crime, they come in, they confess. And they're like, yeah, you confessed 5 times last week, right? It's a great strategy if they ever do anything, that, no one will ever take them seriously. But, serial confessors. But, like, the guy shouldn't have been used. They shouldn't have been out there. But that's not what Candace Owens does, and that's not what Alex Jones does, and these other people. That's what separate them, and many people in the truth community. Because what you eventually have to realize about every one of these things, that, you know, there's like, you're going down a pit, you know, some hole in the ground. You're spelunking, is that what they call it? Spelunking. And you get down to the bottom of your rope, and there's still fucking God knows how long to the bottom, right? And it's nothing there. There's no light. You're trying to get the light down there, and you're like, shit, I don't have enough rope. I better climb the fuck back out of this thing. And so everybody, you know, should see these, that when you cover all this stuff, there's no bottom to it, and there's no solution, and there's no resolution. And there's Erika Kirk's not going to be investigated, and she's not going to be questioned by the police. And you saw all that she's going to get is embarrassed, which, you know, Candace Owens has done a good job of that because they knew each other, and, you know. But Erika Kirk was, I mean, even if Candace Owens didn't exist, this whole movement against her would be there. Like, she was not likable. And maybe it wouldn't be as damaging as it is now, but I think you could totally remove Candace Owens from the situation, and it would kind of end up being about the same. Just like with Donald Trump, as much as the left wants to get him with impeachment or media coverage or whatever, you know, these people just hang themselves because eventually they have the same issue. They can't deliver on their promises. Trump can't make America great again, and he can't fulfill the things that he promised you. You know, everything that he promised you, he's going to be, you know, he has his own agenda. He doesn't give a shit about you. So that's what all these things end up the same way, right? Where they have to, the truth comes out that they've been lying to you. And that's all there is. There's like no justice, no accountability in the justice system, but there's divine accountability. Nobody gets away with anything. Everything is recorded. Everything that you do is you have to pay for, if not in this life, maybe over several lives. Maybe you never stop. Maybe you pay for it for eternity. Like you just there's no hell or heaven. You're not going to hell or heaven. You're in hell, right? Heaven is something that you've yet to experience, right? The kingdom of heaven's within. Almost nobody gets to experience heaven, but you get to experience it here. I've experienced heaven here in various, you know, multiple times and, you know, daily basis. Like I experienced the hell and heaven, the earthly existence, the hell of it, and the heaven that's within all of us, right? And so you have to look for it within, but people just don't do that. And so, you know, when you're experiencing heaven, then the earth turns to heaven. When you're experiencing heaven within, then this planet becomes heaven. You know, all the bullshit that's going on, that has nothing to do with you. All the lies, all the deception, all the corruption. You're just connected to the divinity within you when you're celebrating your, you know, the gratitude that you feel for your divine creator to give you this opportunity to move forward on your spiritual journey. And so there's no any of this, you don't have to worry about any of this other bullshit, right? But, you know, in Candace Owens' situation, she just made things up, right? Like she doesn't admit, which all these people should admit, this system's fucked. You know, there's no saving it. We're not going to find justice. Erika Kirk, this isn't going anywhere, right? This is a rabbit hole that fucking, you know, you're dropping down in and you don't have enough fucking rope to get to the bottom. And even if you get to the fucking bottom, it's just the same as everything else. Depravity, right? It's all about depravity. It's all about human egos run amok, demonic energy, a demonic system, demonic people. Demonic person is somebody whose ego's taken over and hijacked their soul's purpose. And that's almost everybody. And the worst of the worst are people who are lost for maybe lifetimes, maybe forever down this, you know, this pit of despair and hopelessness that comes when you give your ego all the power and you diminish any connection you have to the divinity within you, the soul, your soul's purpose. And so that's what this is all about. And so Candace Owens just made something up, right? You know, it's like she brought in Mitch Snow and made up this Fort Huachuca, whatever truth, there's not truth there. Nothing's ever going to come of it. Even if all the things that she said were true, then what, right? Like, then you have to, well, then what? Like, where's this going? It's going nowhere. But she has an audience to please, and they want these mysteries, and they want these, like, little, oh, look, she's removed a picture. You know, now there's that, right? And whatever she can find to throw up against the wall to keep this thing going, when the story's long since been dead. Erika Kirk is exposed for what she is, just like Trump is exposed for what he is. And, nobody accepts it. That's what I cover here all the time. Like, we should all be in agreement. We should all be able to see what there is to see. But people are so fucked, and most people don't have the capacity for abstract thought. And so none of these things exist for them. And so this is where we're at as a species. And so, like, these are the things that you can see people who are presenting information. They have to go through these ethical dilemmas and make choices. And they make the right one. They make the truthful one. And almost nobody does because, they don't want to disappoint their audience, or they don't, want to lose views, or whatever their fucking reasoning is, right? Just tell the fucking truth and let the chips fall where they may. Anyways, let me come back. Let me find these comments, and I'm going to read the comments from yesterday, and then I'll wrap this thing up in a little bit. Okay, so I just scrolled through the comments, and I got a number of donations from that video that that they demonetized because of the Super Bowl thing, which is great, which I appreciate. And then people donated through PayPal. That was the majority of the comments that are thus far today for my comments. There was a comment from yesterday and one from today I want to read. Let's see if this is it here. That's not. Oh, here it is. When you think about it, Epstein Island was a Kid Rock, which I thought was pretty funny, or at least clever. Somebody said, in this release, Trump was mentioned 34,000 times in the files. That's more than Jesus was mentioned in the Holy Bible, which is about 900 times. And so I asked Gemini about this. I just posted the comment here. And so, Gemini, these fucking AIs are such a buzzkill. The comparison you're making has become a major viral talking point this month, February 2026. It's a striking way to visualize the sheer volume of legal paper trail currently being scrutinized. However, to keep the facts grounded while we dive into this rabbit hole, there's a small but important distinction between mentions and pages, and often gets blurred in the social media headlines. The number of the 34,000 pages versus mentions, the number you're referencing comes from the September 2025 and November 2025 tranches of the Epstein investigative files. The fact that DOJ and the House Oversight Committee confirmed they received approximately 34,000 pages of previously withheld documents, emails, internal FBI memos, and flight logs. The confusion on social media has often been translated that Trump has mentioned 34,000 times. The Jesus conspiracy, you are surprisingly accurate on your biblical data. Yeah, it has nothing to do with me. Somebody left a comment, I copied and pasted. The count in the King James Version, KJV, the name Jesus appears exactly 983 times. In the NIV, 1,310 times. Well, that's quite a distinction. He gets almost 400 more mentions, 330 more mentions in the NIV versus the KJV. So this keeps on going. This is a fucking buzzkill. Like, all you have to say is like, here, this is the answer. These guys just can never give you a fucking answer. So then I asked, well, then how many times is Trump mentioned in the Epstein files? The comparison you've seen is not a viral meme. It's actually an underestimate based on the most recent data dumps from February 26, 2026. If you're surprised by the 34,000, the update numbers from the 3 million pages released by DOJ under the Epstein File Transparency Act are even more massive. What? So it says here, it might be, says, in the latest clash of 3 million documents released on January 30th, 2026, Donald Trump, Melania Trump, or Mar-a-Lago were referred to approximately 38,000 times. Unredacted database on February 10th, 2026, Jamie Raskin reported that he ran digital search for Trump, Donald, and Don in the unredacted files. The system returned over 1 million results. Yeah, you dumb fuck. If you put Don in there, you're going to get don't. Right? Like, every time the word don't is said, which I'm sure it's said a lot in the Epstein files, or maybe not at all. Who knows? But anything with Don in it. And so there's lots of words with the letters D-O-N in it. And so that's fucking Jamie Raskin's a fucking moron. And so, yeah, but, you know, it's quite a bit. So they say the Holy Bible, 900 to 1300. Donald Trump, Epstein Files, 2026, 38,000. Epstein Files, unredacted database, 1 million plus. So you do the fucking math. It's just, you know, he's guilty, and they should have mentioned Jesus more in the Bible. I thought the New Testament would be all Jesus. I mean, 1,300 times doesn't sound like a lot. And 900 sounds even less. So it's how numbers work. All right, so let me see if I got anything more I want to add here. Okay, so you know, for the dumb fucks that still believe that Donald Trump is innocent, you know, you can make up any fucking. Not that I'm supporting disinformation, but they ain't fact checking shit, right? Or they will, and they'll get whatever answer they want to get. But even if Donald Trump was mentioned the same amount of times in the Epstein file as Jesus was mentioned in the Bible, or half of that, or even 10 times, it doesn't matter, right? They were fucking pals, and they hung out, and they were besties, right? So, you know, I mean, the whole thing is silly, and whatever people want to believe or not believe, it's, you know, the truth is there, and the truth is Donald Trump is a creepy motherfucker because he's admitted it and bragged about it on like so many different occasions, and the evidence is fucking overwhelming. Like, you have to be in total denial to believe that he's not creepy. Like, he's fucking creepy with women. He's got a women problem. He's cheated on all of his wives. I mean, any of these things, if you banged a porn star in the 80s or 90s or even probably early 2000s, that would have been enough to get you gone as a politician. Like, if you cheated on your wife with a fucking porn star, right? There's some guy I'm going to cover in my next video. He's in the Olympics and he's confessing to cheating on his girlfriend, some guy who took bronze. And he's begging for her to take her home, take him back, and I'll cover that in my next video. But you know, this is the kind of stuff that's going on here. You know, it's depravity central. Okay, so there was a song that was recommended to me. It was a country song entitled "I Don't Know You Shit." I thought it was a spoof song. I thought it was another song about Erika Kane. It was a fairly good country song, but, you know, I couldn't get through it. But the basic premise is karma's a bitch and I don't know you shit. So going back to what I was saying about the Candace Owens stuff and the truth community, all these things, you know, when you look around, are things getting fucking better or are they getting worse? I say this all the time. Are they getting better? Like, where's the hope? You know, there's always hope, and there's always, you know, God always gives a solution. Every problem, there's a solution. The solution is not palatable. People don't want to know what the solution is. In most cases, people don't want to do what they need to do. God will tell them what to do in one way or another. Like, you'll find out through whatever, you know, there's no burning bush. No, there's nothing dramatic. The ideas will come to you. Someone will tell you, you know, they'll see something on TV. You'll have a dream, you know, some bullshit like that, right? Not bullshit, but, you know, something like that. And I had an interesting dream I'm going to say in a second. And so, like, not really interesting, weird. But anyways, you know, you find out what you have to do and then you reject it. Like, people know what they have to do. And if you gave them enough money or incentive, they would do the right thing. You could find a way to incentivize somebody to do the right thing. But usually it's not, solving the problem isn't enough of an incentive. You know, getting rid of something bad in their life isn't not enough of an incentive, right? So, you know, there's hope out there, but people aren't embracing it. People aren't going to change. People are just getting worse. And so there's collapse. Like, collapse is inevitable. When you see someone going down a depraved path, in a movie, a TV show, a book, or in real life, more importantly in real life, you see a character going down some path, addiction, whatever it is, gambling addiction, you know, whatever addiction it is, some kind of, you know, whatever their vices, inevitably they're going to completely destroy them. It's going to, you know, their addiction, their my precious is going to destroy them, right? It happens to everybody. You know, people who you know what's going to happen. People are going over the cliff, and it's just that they haven't hit rock bottom yet. And so that's what's happened collectively to our society. And so you prepare for what is. Like, we prepare for what's happening. And, like I said, there's always an antidote. And the antidote to this is if you externalize everything and you make everything about the material world, well, how do you reverse that process? Well, you go inside and you make everything about the divinity within you. Instead of everything about being, your outward world, your material world, your ego manifestation, make it about your divine manifestation. And so that's the antidote. And nobody wants to hear that shit. And even if they want to hear it or are willing to believe it, they don't want to act on it or do anything. And if they realize what they have to give up in terms of their egotistical pursuits, they would say, fuck you, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's just how it is. Like, that's how it's always been. That's why people are where they are, where we are collectively. There's been one after another spiritual movement, and people just don't register with it. They don't get into it, right? I mean, people dabble with a little bit of religion here or something, a little bit of prayer there, but mostly, if you broke down the percentage of each person's life, even the people who are really into God or claim to be or talk about God all the time, what is their percentage? 10%? They're 90% material and 10% spiritual, right? Like, it's like, and that's great. Like, for modern day life, if you're 10% spiritual or even 10% religious, because being religious is not being spiritual. So spirituality is connecting to the divinity within you. But if you're just reading the Bible and you're just talking about Jesus and there's not really any internal connection, but you're into your religion and you actually practice what you preach and you're a good Christian, majority of people, it's like 10%, 20%, and then everything else is their material life, right? Your material life is going to dominate anyway. You have kids, you have a job, you have to eat, you have to sleep somewhere, you have to make money, you have to, all these things, right? You have physical demands. You have to, you have physical issues, clothes, and you're cold, you're hot, you have all these things, right? You have, your the demands of being in a physical body. So your body is always going to be, there's people who sleep on a bed of nails and they try to negate their body and they fast and they, meditate in caves for 18 hours, but that's rare. Like, where somebody is focused too much on the spiritual and, the Sajmark system, you need two wings of a bird to fly, a material wing and a spiritual wing, and you're looking for balance. Or what you're really trying to do is you're working towards bringing in your spiritual life into your material life, so that when you're living your material life, you're also connected spiritually. So then it becomes like a marriage of the two things. You're 100% spiritual, and while you're being material, you're 100% spiritual. But you're focused on your material life. You're not running away from material life like these monks and these other people that are just, they become, they run away from life, right? It's not really spirituality. And so, if you're being a spiritual person, you have to live the life you're supposed to live. You just do it with God instead of doing it with your ego. And so nobody wants to hear that shit. And I say it all the time, and it doesn't matter, it falls on deaf ears. And even if people could listen to it, what are they going to do about it, right? I mean, it's, they're limited in their ability to do it, and there's a system. But, the system that I do is kind of the organization's collapsed, and I talk about it. I mean, people are benefiting from the Gratefullness meditation, but it's hard to do it on your own, these things. But inevitably, something's got to shift because we can't keep on going like we're going. And, so there'll be it'll become mandatory at some point for people to survive, to connect to God. It's just like you'll have to do it. Not because God's forcing you, just because, you're up against the wall and the only way someone can survive is with God. Like right now, you can survive without God. At least you think you can, because, God's, your soul is divine. So without your divine soul, you can't live. But people, you don't need it. Like, you don't need, like, it's there, you need it, but you don't need it, right? Like, you don't have to attend to it or pay attention to it until it says, well, it's time for me to go, and then you got an empty corpse, right? And then you're left with all the baggage and bullshit that you did, your soul is, and you have to come back in and relive all these, past some scars, these impressions, these things, the residue of your previous existence. Anyways, I guess that's enough for now. Only spirituality will save this world. Its power battle definitely important for the apocalypse. and the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.